Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to reintroduce to you now. Amy Berger is a returning guest on our show. Be sure to check out her appearances on episode 47, episode 68, and episode 354 of Boundless Body Radio. Amy Berger is a U.S. Air Force veteran and certified nutrition specialist who specializes in helping people to do, quote, keto without the crazy, end quote. She has a master's degree in human nutrition and writes about a wide range of health and nutrition related topics such as insulin, metabolism, weight loss, diabetes, thyroid function, and more. Amy is the author of several amazing books, including The Alzheimer's Antidote, using a low carb, high fat diet to fight Alzheimer's disease, memory loss, and cognitive decline, and The Stall Slayer, 7 Roadblocks to Keto Fat Loss and What to Do About Them. She is also the co-author of End Your Carb Confusion, a simple guide to customize your carb intake for optimal health. Amy spent years doing what nutrition and health experts claimed to lose weight, but failed to experience the expected results. You can read Amy's blog at www.toitnutrition.com, where Amy's readers value her clever and humorous writing style and her ability to translate scientific research jargon and gobbledygook into plain English. Amy Berger, what an absolute honor it is to welcome you to Boundless Body Radio.
Hey, good to see you again.
Good to see you again. I purposely used an older introduction with your words, not mine. But it's so great to chat with you again. It was great to see you a few months ago at the COSI conference, which I want to talk to you about. But I also want to mention that I knew I already liked you. But when I saw a tweet of yours from like a week or two ago, that was all about the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs, I was like, oh my goodness, I like you even more now. It's the most wonderful time of the year. I love the Stanley Cup playoffs. I don't get a lot of sleep, but it's absolutely wonderful. I'm not sure if it's too early to talk about, but as of the time of recording last night, your team was eliminated from contention, the Carolina Hurricanes. But yeah, how long have you been into hockey and watching hockey and into the Canes?
I've been into hockey, I guess now it's 25 years because when I was a senior in college, which I guess was 25 years ago, oh my God, I went to my very first game in Pittsburgh, actually. It was a Penguins game because they had student rush tickets. It was like any tickets remaining a few hours before the game. I think it was like $20 or something. They just wanted to fill the seats. And so I had never been to a professional game before, and I just fell in love with it. There was something about the sounds and the sights and even the smell of the arena. And I've just been a big fan ever since. So the Penguins are my first love, but I lived in North Carolina for 4 years. And so now I guess my love is divided between the Pens and the Hurricanes. But yeah, the Canes got eliminated last night, which is a huge
They
bummer.
did. They did. Oh, I'm a huge Penguins fan. That's amazing. I've always loved Sidney Crosby and his story, and I followed the Penguins for a long time. This is the first year that the Arizona team had to move and relocate to my hometown, so we actually have an NHL hockey team and the Utah Hockey Club, and I got to go to so many different games. One of the most memorable games we had here in this season was against Carolina. Our backup goalie came in and played amazing. His name is Karel Vejmelka. He made like 49 saves. It was incredible, and his nickname is Veggie. And so it was like the first time in the arena that the entire arena started chanting veggie, veggie, veggie. And some of the fans will now wear like broccoli hats or they'll throw broccoli onto the ice all the time. And so it was a very memorable moment, and it was against your Carolina Hurricanes.
Well, that's so fun. I did your team win or did the Canes win?
We won that one, and then we went to
Okay.
Carolina and we got smoked. So
Okay.
it did balance out. But it was funny, like I was a huge fan of Colorado, and I hated the Red Wings, which was part of the reason why I was such a big fan of the Penguins. And when they announced like the Utah Hockey Club was coming here, now we're known as Utah Mammoth. It was like so fast. I was like, I don't like the Avalanche anymore. I don't like Vegas. All my favorite teams were now my enemies. And like I was very, very loyal to our new hockey team. So that's cool that you've been in it for so long and even knew that, Canada had not won a cup since 1993. I believe it was the Montreal Canadiens way back then, beating the LA Kings, I think.
Yeah, I don't know who they played, but I just know that I don't know. Sorry for anyone else out there, but I have to root for Edmonton now because I
Me too.
mean it's long overdue for a Canadian team to win. And for anyone
Yeah.
who's like, I thought this was a keto podcast or like a health podcast, yeah,
We'll get
we're
there.
allowed to have interests that are not, food and keto. We are humans that
This
have
is
other
true.
things in our lives.
Yeah, this is true. And I will say, to bring science into this, it is objective fact, very scientific, that the Canadian national anthem is way better than the American national anthem. It's shorter, it's to the point, it's easier to sing, it's way better. And in Edmonton, the guy who sings it every night. He only does the first line, and then he raises his microphone up, and the entire building it sings the most beautiful national anthem at the top of their lungs. It's amazing. So I'll also be rooting for the Edmonton Oilers. Hopefully, the cup goes back to Canada before someday my hockey team takes it and brings it to Utah for the first time. All right. Well, I definitely want to talk to you about the conference that you and I both went to, the COSI conference. I always like to ask my guests, what are some standout highlights from that conference for you? Did anything really like stand out in particular, or anybody that you heard off camera? You were kind of talking about Dr. Nadir Ali and how amazing he is. Any other events that it really stood out for you for that 2025 COSI conference?
Well, definitely Dr. Ali was amazing. And I don't even remember if he gave a talk on stage. He must have, but I attended a lunchtime session where he gave an additional talk that was outstanding. I mean, of course, about cardiovascular health and, coronary, the calcium scores, and it was mind blowing. And of course, we had the world debut of Dave Feldman's cholesterol code movie. I mean, that was phenomenal. Just uh, wow. Wow. It's not easy to leave me speechless, but I hope that that movie makes a really big difference.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, no surprise that a Jen Eisenhart movie, who also did Fat Fiction, would be nothing less than spectacular. I got to stay at that conference with my good friends Matt Dobbins, Robin Dobbins, and their daughter, who are all featured in the movie and the documentary. She was the one that had bipolar, and I was in the car afterwards, and we were kind of talking to the daughter about her contribution to the film. I don't know if you remember; you could hear a pin drop in the theater. But when they asked her, like the daughter, what memories do you have of your mom growing up? And she was like, I really don't have any memories of my mom at all. She felt really bad about it in the car. She was like, I can't believe I said it. I can't believe I said it that way. And all of us were like, no, that was so powerful the way you did that. That was really courageous. And it really drove home the point. She did a great job making that movie.
Yeah, I mean there was a lot of discussion about that after the premiere, that really was what made the film so powerful, is those personal stories. It's all well and good to have the doctors talk about the science, and we need that, but I mean, what's going to get anyone interested in this is someone else out there that had their same condition, that was severely impacted, whether it's a mental health thing, a physical health thing, diabetes, and to see the kind of difference that a ketogenic or low carb diet made. It's like, whoa, maybe I should try that. Or there's hope. Like, look at this person's life is completely different.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, really almost like not a dry eye in the house kind of a moment.
Totally. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And that's why, like, if I start talking about what a lean mass hyperresponder is, people's eyes glaze over. They don't want to hear about any of that. But when I say, like, well, what about my friend Robin? She was bipolar for most of her life. Now she no longer takes medication, but her cholesterol goes sky high. If she eats carbohydrates, her cholesterol goes back down and her bipolar comes back. Like, what would you do? And putting that to a person that I'm trying to talk to is like, wow, that's really impactful. And they understand a little bit more how important this type of work is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And another moment that stands out to me is there was a talk that was, I forget the person's name. It was a woman who was talking about her husband's experience. And it was someone who, basically out of the box keto diet was not working. The weight wasn't coming off, his insulin wasn't budging, and he was really doing all the right things. And it just turns out his body was extremely, extremely stubborn. And if I recall correctly, he just had to do a lot more fasting. And, there may have been, I think maybe there was some targeted supplementation too, but I just remember that they had to really drill down and kind of pull out all the stops to get some progression with him, like with the weight loss, the fatty liver, the all the insulin resistance. And it just goes to show, and I say this all the time, that keto, every it sounds like such a cop out to say that everyone's different, but as they call it, a well formulated keto diet will work wonders for most people. And then there's always going to be those outlier situations where you really have to do more. where just kind of cutting the carbs is not enough.
That's a really good point. I love that. Okay, so I've got some things I wanted to talk to you about, and one of the highlights for me for the conference was hearing your talk. It is the talk that I've mentioned the most since coming home from the conference on this show many, many times. It's the talk that I've, told all my clients about. You made some really, really good points, which I absolutely love. You're just an absolute star at not only getting on stage, presenting science, but also making things like very practical, being really funny, being a very good presenter. You get the attention of everybody, and I thought your topic was wonderful. So I want to talk about that for sure. And I don't want to pump your tires too much, but you were so instrumental in my understanding of ketogenic diets when I first got into this. You had been writing about this stuff, and I was just getting into this world and like learning like how some of this stuff works. Why is none of this stuff taught in my nutrition manual? Why is there only one sentence that says anything about ketosis? It doesn't really say anything about gluconeogenesis. And I'm telling you, I remember exactly the light rail train that I was riding to a football game to go watch University of Utah football game, reading your printed article about gluconeogenesis that was blowing my mind. I remember the whole trip. It was about an hour, flew by super super fast, and I remember even leaving the article in a way that like if anybody had any interest in nutrition, they might like pick it up and like read it. So I want to ask you a little bit about that, but I do want to bring that up early just to say that you've been very instrumental in my understanding of some of this stuff and communicating in a way that even a bum like me can understand. So I really do appreciate that about you and how you approach things.
Well, I am absolutely honored to hear that. I'm flattered and flabbergasted. Thank you. That's wow, floored. Thank
Well,
you.
it's amazing. When somebody asks you to speak at a conference and you've been in the ketogenic world for so long, is it difficult for you at this point to know what you want to talk about?
Yes, and in fact, I almost didn't speak at COSI because when Dave invited me, I said to him, "I'd love to come talk, but I'm kind of out of new things to say on stage." I said, "I feel like I have plenty to say to lay people who are struggling or who need help. Like that's what I do on YouTube, but to get on stage at a more sort of academic type conference." I'm not a researcher. I don't have a lab. I don't have grad students working for me. Like I don't have new data to present. So what am I going to talk about? And it was Dave's suggestion to do something with Keto Without the Crazy, which if anyone doesn't follow me, that's sort of my tagline, my motto. And that planted the seed for this. But yeah, it's not easy to come up with new things when you're not a researcher and you don't have, new, like I said, new data, new discoveries. Um, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get into your talk in a second, but let's start on that note. Obviously, you came up with that tagline for a reason. What have you noticed in your time in the ketogenic world as far as the craziness goes?
Well, I've been doing this a long time, and when I was new to this for myself as a layperson, I mean, after having my own weight loss with a low carb diet, I went back to school for nutrition, so I was a career changer. So when I was brand new to all this, social media didn't even exist, not as we know it today. I mean, the internet existed. I'm not that old, but there was no YouTube, Instagram, Reddit, Twitter. None of that existed, or X, whatever they call it now. Like none of that even existed. There was a couple of those really old school message boards, and there were books. There was the Atkins book. There was Protein Power. So I always say there was a lot less information out there, but there was a lot less misinformation. There was none of the overcomplication that I see today, and none of the fear mongering about certain food items and food products, none of the, you have to measure this and you have your macros and you have to measure your ketones and do this and fast and get the red light sauna and like just I'm not saying that none of that helps. There's a time and place for everything, but to come into the keto space now, I think there's a lot of people that probably don't even bother trying because they take one look at like, whoa, I can't afford to do this because I have to buy food. Oh, and I have to buy a ketone meter and a breath meter and who knows what else. Like it's become just so it's leading people astray because it's also leading people to eat certain things or not eat certain things that could be really helpful for them, and I think people are trying to cobble together a program from 86 different influencers. I'll do a little bit of this instead of like going with a tried and true, very simple kind of approach. There's so many people out there now that I just think there's a lot of people br- bringing things into a keto diet that don't need to be there, and they make it more expensive, a lot more complicated, a lot more anxiety inducing. And uh, my whole Keto Without the Crazy is to help people see how simple it can be when you let it be. And maybe there's a need for some of that more complex stuff, but let's not start there. Let's start with the really easy, simple approach and go from there.
Yeah, well said. I haven't gone back and listened to any of the talks from COSI just yet. I don't even know where they are or if they're available. So I don't recall exactly what the title of your talk was, but it was along those lines. What was the name of your talk?
I think it was called The Dark Side of Biohacking.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, and you know what? Like I'm sitting here and I'm on my grounding mat and I've got my toe spacers in and I'm drinking water that I got from a spring. And
Right. We,
later
we, we
today,
can't
I'm
be
gonna.
friends anymore then.
Yeah, exactly right. But it's in plastic. Is that better if it's in plastic? I'm killing myself with microplastics. No, like I do these things because I enjoy them. And later tonight, I'm going to watch, playoff hockey from my infrared sauna. And like I put these things in my life because I enjoy them. But you're right. Like this is not what I'm leading with. If you're doing a consultation with me, we're not talking about these things. Those are just things that I find enjoyable and easy in my life right now. Like there's so many other like big fish that you could talk about. What are some of the things you try to focus on when somebody is just starting in this world? And what are what are some examples of stuff besides the stuff you've already mentioned that you don't even want somebody to be thinking about in the beginning?
Well, I mean, if I can step back for a second, like you have all these devices and these things, but you said you enjoy it, it makes you feel good. That was really the big point that I made in that talk was this technology should serve us, not the other way around. If whatever you're doing, whether I mean I have an aura ring, like whether it's an aura ring or a grounding mat or a sauna or what have you, if you enjoy doing it and it's helping you carry on, like the more the merrier, go ahead. But a lot of people reach a point where that stuff controls everything they do. Everything they do, every step they take is, it's almost like you get somebody would honestly be upset, be anxious if they didn't record their work. Oh, my steps didn't count today, or like, oh, I just when so all of these devices, especially a lot of the ketone meters and even a scale, even a bathroom scale or an Oura ring or whatever, Apple Watch, this stuff is supposed to provide us helpful feedback, right? Data that can guide certain changes. And I'm all for that. I think that's very useful. But when it tips over into feeling like a punishment, feeling like you're doing something wrong, or um, it's when it starts, it really, for a lot of people, it starts to work against mental and emotional health. And all of the stuff that we're doing, whether we're trying to I hate optimize is such a loaded word, but optimize our sleep, get a certain amount or a certain type of physical activity, eat in a certain way, get sunlight exposure, whatever it may be, all of that, I think, is intended to help us feel better. And so when it reaches a point where it's making us feel worse, and we literally almost feel like a slave to these devices and to our routine, I have to do this 7 times a week. I have to do, if it's causing anxiety and fear and worry, well, isn't that the opposite of what we wanted? And that's what I see a lot of in this sort of biohacking world. And it's not unique to keto. I mean, this is anyone who does all this stuff, but that's really the difference for me. I have no problem with people using any of these things until it tips over into this just where it just starts eating away at your mental health.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And on the note of the influencers and devices, I didn't prepare you for this question, so I have no idea how you're going to ask. Honest question. Do you personally have any like affiliate links for products, devices, that kind of thing?
I do, yeah. I have no problem admitting that. I have an affiliate link, I think, for the Keto Mojo, you can measure your glucose and ketones, and for for one company's exogenous ketones. I'm not opposed to any of these products. I just want people to use them in a way that's helpful and beneficial. And I think it often starts out that way. And then it just kind of explodes into this territory where you I don't maybe you don't see it as much or as often as I do, but I literally people are so fearful of the numbers on these things, and I just mm,
Yeah.
these things are supposed to help us, and in many ways they hurt us.
Yeah, got it. Okay, that was the main takeaway I got out of your talk anyway, and we'll revisit that in a second. But what I know, like you having affiliate links, those are very well trusted. I know, Keto Mojo, the company. I've met them. They're amazing. I would recommend them to everybody. In fact, I sold one this week without an affiliate link to somebody who wanted it because he was going to track ketones because he has a cancer diagnosis. Like that to me is like, okay, that's maybe a good reason and you can do that and I can give you a reliable one and here you go. I think a lot of people that I talk to and do consults with, they have reached out to influencers who have, done programs and they're promoting and like overtly kind of selling some of these things a lot heavier, and people feel like they're getting um I don't know, maybe like taken advantage of in a small way because the influencers are making so much money on the programs and the complicated stuff and the devices and all these things. Is that something that you notice as well?
It's hard to say. I honestly don't watch a lot of that stuff because I find and I talked a little bit about this at COSI too, the alarmism is so distasteful. You're gonna die if you don't eat this one thing, or this thing is killing you. And it's so they're feeding the algorithm, and I know they are. That's how the game is played if you want to make any money doing this. But I don't know how much money these people are necessarily making, but everyone has a right to sell stuff. They really do. I
Absolutely.
mean, it's but nobody's required to buy it. If somebody is promoting something, nobody's required to click on it, right? So I can't it's nobody's really being taken advantage of, like factually they're not, but I guess it can be misleading if an influencer kind of makes you think that you need whatever that product is.
Got it. Okay, that's well said. And again, I don't fault anybody for doing that too. Like I understand I'm probably missing out on getting a little bit more of the share of the pie by doing that, but I just don't like it. And I don't fault anybody for doing it. And I on that note, as far as like devices, information, now that I'm thinking about it, we were talking offline a little bit about this, but this was the statement that made me turn off the Joe Rogan interview with Dr. Sean Baker when I very first heard of carnivore. And I was already thinking, like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. This guy is a surgeon. He's eating meat and he's like crushing deadlifts and like he's not eating vegetables. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Eventually I became certified as a coach for his company, but at the time I'm listening to this for the first time. And his statement, this was a statement that made me turn this off. And it was literally like 5 years that I didn't go back and listen to it until I decided to go back. When he said, he was asked something about blood work, and he responded in a way that, like, the more I do this, the more I realize that some of these things we're trying to measure, we don't even know, like, where they're supposed to be. What's the context? How is this different general population to a carnivore? Is my blood the same right now that it will be in 5 minutes? I mean, Dave Feldman himself showed very early on that he can make his LDL cholesterol go up or down by 100 points in a day, easy. So, as you've been doing this as long as you have, when it comes to like procedures, CAC scores, calcium, blood work, all this stuff, like testing the gut microbiome in general, like obviously some of this has, some importance and help, but in general, how much weight do you put in those things? Do you put more weight or less weight into those things as you've gone on in your career?
Well, with the caveat that I am not a physician, I'm a nutritionist, so this is really my opinion, not a medical anything. I think some of the really standard blood tests are, I think, still very helpful to do. A basic CBC, the complete blood count, the metabolic panel, the standard stuff, an A1C, a fasting insulin. Some of this really advanced stuff, though, I think we we don't know how to interpret it quite as well as some people think we do. Like a lot, again, the CAC, the coronary artery calcium, some of this other stuff, we're kind of in the infancy of so many more people doing this, and we're gathering so much more data that I just don't I don't, especially like I mentioned Dr. Ali's talk earlier. So much of this stuff is not as ironclad as we think it is. Even looking, let's for example, someone who has a high calcium score, like a lot of atherosclerosis, that's no guarantee they're ever going to have a heart attack or stroke. Now, okay, are they at higher risk? Yeah, but you can also have a high score. You can live a long, healthy life. So it's just, I think that people are putting too much stock in this stuff when we don't. I'm like repeating myself. I'm not, my words are not coming out so well right now. That we just don't know as much about the implications of this stuff as some people think we do. And I've heard my friend Dr. Westman say it. I've heard Ted Naiman say it. You said Sean Baker said it. Like a lot of a lot of that data wouldn't change what you tell someone to do anyway. Do you know what I mean? It's not like you're not going to it doesn't, if it doesn't really change the clinical picture, why do it? And especially a lot of this gut microbiome stuff and all of this, you know, at first years ago, everybody was afraid of cholesterol. High cholesterol is really bad for you. Then it was, oh no, it's not cholesterol, it's only the LDL. No, it's not the LDL, it's the small dense LDL. Oh no, it's not the small dense LDL, it's the oxidized LDL. Oh no, it's not that, it's the ApoB. Oh no, it's not the ApoB, it's the LP little a. Are you kidding me? Or maybe none of this has anything to do with anything. And people are kind of scrambling all over themselves to get all these tests when I don't know that we really know how to interpret it yet. And it's, again, it's like with the biohacking, it's causing so much fear and so much anxiety. And I'm not saying it's better to keep your head in the sand. You do want to know something about what's going on inside your body, but we've reached a point, like I guess the best way I can say it is that the technology to measure a lot of these things has outpaced our ability to understand what the heck it means and what to do about it, if anything.
Yeah. Very well explained. I absolutely love that. Have you watched the really funny video? It's like 4 or 5 minutes long of the time traveling nutritionist.
Ooh, I don't think so, but that sounds funny.
We'll tag it in the notes. It's very funny. It's like this family that's eating breakfast in the 60s, and this guy comes through and he's like, "Wait, cholesterol, you got to throw the eggs away." And he leaves and he comes back. He's like, "Wait, the whites are okay, but it's the yolks. You got to throw the yolks away." And then he leaves and comes back. "No, it's steak. You can eat bread." "No, you can't eat bread. Paleo people didn't eat bread." Anyway, we'll tag it in the notes. It's really good. And
But
right
that's
along those
exactly
lines.
right. How much that we think we know now is going to be overturned 30 years
Yeah.
from now.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, the guy time travels back to the Paleolithic era and he comes back all beat up and he's like, wow, those guys are having a really rough time. Like, we don't know. We don't know what they were doing. Yeah, that's very interesting. And I love the point. The thing I walked away with the most, I wanted to reiterate, you've already kind of mentioned it, but I really want to hammer this point home. I've been paraphrasing this a ton, like I said, on this show and with my clients. What you choose to do with your diet, the level that you want to get involved with this stuff, the things you want to measure, the things you want to care about. The point of trying a ketogenic diet for most people is to improve your life. It is not to make your life worse and give you more work. And like you said, spend more money or buy more ingredients or whatever. Like the point of this is to make your life better, to give you more energy, to go enjoy life. And I just, that point to me was the highlight of the entire conference. Besides the movie and all the amazing work that had been done with lean mass hyperresponders, that point to me stood alone as one of the best. And so I just want you to kind of reiterate that and maybe kind of riff off of that.
Well, again, I'm beyond flattered, truly. I mean, keto is, there's so much, I see so many people doing well, and they are, they don't, they don't realize how well they're doing because every other influencer is telling them that something they're doing is bad or wrong, right? If let's say someone has lost 50 pounds and their A1C has come down 3 points, and like what, their fatty liver is reversed and their skin has cleared up and their joint pain is gone and their migraines are gone. Well, and they've been eating non-starchy vegetables in their low carb or keto diet. And along comes, this anointed carnivore influencer who tells them that broccoli is killing them, or, the spinach is no good. Like, what are you supposed to make of that? It's, I see so many people having incredible success and being steered away from something they're doing by some stranger on the internet, basically. And then I did a video that was called "Keto Influencers Make You Insert Expletive Terrified of Food." And it was basically, I mean, I've said this before in interviews where I'll be on a call with somebody and I can feel the anxiety radiating out at me through the screen. They are terrified of every food because someone out there is scaring them away from something, and they're paralyzed. They don't know what to eat. They don't know how much protein, what time of day. Is it 2 meals a day? Is it one? Does my autophagy shut off at 16 hours? Like what? And it's like, what is going on here? And yeah, this is supposed to make your life better. It's not supposed to be a full-time job. If your diet, if your entire life revolves around when you eat, what you eat, how much you eat, where it comes from, we have a problem. Now, unless you want to live like that, if you want to devote every waking hour, then great, you can do that. But I just think it's people are thinking it needs to be so much more complicated than it is. And again, it's making people like just like the tension that I can sense from them. It's palpable.
Yeah. Wow. Well, again, I really appreciate that. And we need to remember that. And we go to these conferences, you and I and the people that are there, and we go because we care about these things. Otherwise, we would have ended up at the beach, right? There was other things we could have been doing. Even in Las Vegas, I hear there's other things you can do than go to a conference. We go because we get to see our friends. We get to learn stuff. There's new research that's being presented, and we get to talk about that. And all the biohacking stuff it's fun, and you can get involved with it at whatever level. But the overall message, again, I thought landed really, really well. Everybody I talked to kind of said the same thing. That when you got on stage and presented that was like really helpful. And let's just remember, like, leave this conference, walk outside, go to the airport, look at people at the airport, and realize, do these people need all these devices and fancy things, or do these people need to not be chugging that 52-ounce soda at the airport? You know what I mean? Like we're missing the forest for the trees.
Yeah, and I will say, I mean, I am all for people learning and educating themselves. If they want to watch YouTube and they want to go, we've tons of lay people coming to these conferences. That's great. What I wouldn't say worries me, but my concern is that there are people who, to their credit, want to improve their health. Let's say they are using a ketone meter. They're measuring ketones, but they don't really understand how to make sense of what's going on. So they become really, really worried about perfectly normal physiology. And, or they hear an influencer spout some soundbite and they run with that, not really having an appreciation for the much bigger picture and all the nuance. Like getting back to the, that you mentioned my gluconeogenesis article a while ago, that Protein turns into sugar. Oh my God, yikes. Like, I guess I shouldn't eat protein. Or, fat, like, oh, ketones come from fat, then I need to put a stick of butter in my coffee. Or like I have to have this certain GKI, glucose ketone index. And they don't really, I see it with CGMs a lot. There was somebody who, and this is maybe an extreme example, but somebody wrote to me a while back that did an intense workout in a fasted state, and they were worried that their blood sugar went up really high. And I was like, yeah, congratulations, your body is doing exactly what it's supposed to do in that circumstance. So I think these technologies are very helpful, but not everyone really understands the bigger picture and how to interpret what is happening. And I joke, but it's not really a joke. You should have to sit through a 5-hour biochemistry lecture before you're allowed to use a CGM or a ketone meter. But again, I don't want to sound judgy. If people want to use this stuff, use it. You are free to do whatever you want. But I would wish for them that they have the ability to interpret all the numbers that they see.
Yeah, I
Instead of
love that.
just automatically freaking out when they don't understand something.
Yeah. That to me, again, we've touched on it, but that to me is where all of this stuff flips and becomes just one more stress that's making your life even worse and not making it better. So again, I love all of those points. You're the best explaining that. I absolutely love that. And you already mentioned somebody. I did want to talk to you about this. Because you've done a little bit of research into this. We've interviewed Dr. Ted Naiman, who you mentioned, on our podcast twice. Um, yeah, awesome guy. I love his content. Very nice guy. Most of everything he says, I'm like, yeah, fully on board with. And a few years ago, him and Dr. Einfeld, I never say his name right. Did I say his name right? Dr. Einfeld?
I think it's Ian Felt, but I don't
Ian
really know.
Feld.
And I've
Okay.
met him. I've met him, and I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
I met him too. We both met him, I think, at Low Carb Denver
Denver,
2023.
maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have to say the funniest line from that entire conference came from you as well, where you and I were watching a panel of all the cardiologists. Remember when Nina Teicholz was like moderating a panel of like 5 or 6 cardiologists, and you leaned over to me and you said those people should not be on the same stage together. Like if something were to happen and a plane were to crash on the stage and we lost all these people all at once, we should keep them all separate, like the president and vice president. That was my favorite line of the entire weekend. By the way, I have
Yeah,
to
we
give you
can't, we
credit for that.
can't lose everybody all at once.
Exactly, exactly. It's so true. Anyway, the two of them, Dr. Naiman and Dr. Ian Felt, came up with a way to kind of classify foods and assign it a score based on satiety per calorie. We've talked about this a few times over time on the show. Some people have very strong opinions for or against it. I'm just curious to hear what you think of the idea. I believe the components are how much protein, how much fiber, and how it drives what do they call it, hedonic factor, which is like how much it drives like addictive behaviors. Are those the ways they rate the different foods, or am I misunderstanding that?
I honestly, I'm not sure what goes
Okay.
into their algorithm, but I think it does have a lot to do with the fiber content, the water content, probably like the glycemic impact. But the protein, the fiber, and the water, I'm pretty sure are big parts of it.
Got it. Okay. So how would you explain to somebody, satiety per calorie, their concept, and what things do you like about it, or what things do you disagree about it?
Well, so I think if you've had Dr. Naiman on the show, then it's his concept. He could explain it better than I can. But it was
To be fair, it's been a long time. I think it was before he started talking about that. We talked about the PE diet, which was kind of initial work, but I don't think we covered that specifically with him.
okay. Well, I think in a nutshell, it is eating in such a way that you feel satiated. You feel you fill up and stay feeling full for a while with not necessarily the least amount of calories or food energy, but less than you were eating. And I think it's mainly for weight loss, because if the whole premise is that you need to eat less, then or to take in less energy, then one way to do that is to eat foods that give you that full feeling while providing less energy. And so it's a lot of it overlaps I think a lot with a lower carb diet, not keto, but lower carb. It's going to be like a lot of non-starchy, fibrous vegetables, proteins. I mean, the biggest difference I think is it would be a lot lower in fat. It's a lot more lean proteins, but it's higher carb too. You know, like there's fruit and beans and things like this. And I have so much respect for Dr. Naiman and Dr. Ianfeld. I think it's a really good basic framework that I think can work well for a lot of people. But I wish when I hear them talk, I wish they would say more that an actual ketogenic diet is necessary for certain conditions, you know, or at least much, much lower carb, where like just kind of skirting around is not going to help. You know, I think if if the main focus is weight loss, then that satiety per calorie can work well for some people, not everyone. My biggest issue with it is that I like I said, it's a good basic framework, but satiety is somewhat subjective. You know, two people can eat the exact same food and it leaves them feeling very different. And I always use the example because they often tout Greek yogurt, like plain Greek yogurt. Even I guess even with the fat, it's still relatively low satiety per calorie, but especially like a low fat or a non-fat Greek yogurt. Everyone says, "Oh, you can't eat, you know, it's so filling." I'm like, really?" I will polish off a quart-sized tub and go looking for tub number 2. So to me, that's not a high satiety food, but for someone else it is. So I just that to me, that's the biggest flaw, that a food that maybe their algorithm rates as a very high satiety per calorie food might not be that for me personally. So I think that there's still a lot of um, you know, personalization that would need to have happen. But I think that's it's a really good starting framework. I really do think, and I think that the keto community has gone a little too far in demonizing certain foods, and especially with the popularity of carnivore. And please, for the record, I've recommended the carnivore diet. I mean, I just depending on the particular client's situation, on the specifics of their circumstances. I've had clients, I've told them to eat fewer carbs. I've told them to do carnivore. I've told them to eat more carbs. So I'm not opposed to any of these things, but the satiety per calorie, it's just nice to see people not being afraid anymore to eat things like beans or fruit or potatoes or but at the same time I want to recognize that it, at least for some people, there's something unique about a ketogenic metabolism that I think is going to do certain things beneficially for you that like a higher carb diet is just not. Like you mentioned, Robin and the bipolar. I don't think she's going to get better eating beans and rice and fish and fruit. I think she needed a ketogenic diet. And especially for people maybe that have binge eating or food addiction, they will probably do better on a much, much lower carb diet. But again, everybody's different. But so it's just, I think it's been nice to see. I really do like to see them broadening the conversation because as much as I can recognize the power of a ketogenic diet, I mean, I've built my career on a ketogenic diet, but I can also recognize that it's like ridiculous on its face to think that strawberries are causing obesity or diabetes. Like so to to bring a little bit of, I don't know, sanity back to the conversation.
Yeah, which you're the best at. Although I cannot even believe you tell some people to eat more carbohydrates. That is unbelievable. We're never inviting you back here.
And they didn't drop dead immediately upon doing it either.
Oh my goodness, they will soon. Oh, it's gonna be terrible. No, I love all those points, and we've already referenced the 2023 Low Carb Denver conference, and one of the speakers at the conference was Lane Norton. And you're listening to Lane Norton talk, and he was talking about how to understand studies. These are ways that people argue about studies that are flawed, And I'm listening and I'm like nodding along, like, yeah, he's right. That sounds really good. He's right. And in interest, interspersed with that conversation is his normal, kind of stuff that he talks about, like it's not just about keto, it's about all these other diets and weight control and how you can control weight with these other things. And like you're like, yeah, you can lose weight on a lot of different ways, but the big thing that I really, for me, it was such a huge contrast that we took a break, and then the next speaker was Dr. Chris Palmer, and now he's talking about a ketogenic diet. We're not talking about weight control. Like weight control, you can go play in the sandbox. We're talking about like how to reverse people out of like serious mental disorders and metabolic ketogenic therapies. And I think that's what gets missed oftentimes when, you know, we are just talking about weight control and there's lots of different ways to do it. However, there might be other reasons not related to weight that might push you more towards the ketogenic side. And also realizing that like we all have so much more in common. I see the keto people throwing rotten tomatoes at Dr. Naiman and Dr. Ian Felt and like firing them back. It's just we're saying the same stuff. Like it's not vastly different the things we're talking about, and people should go to whatever they connect with and whatever makes them feel good related to what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I think this is one of the drawbacks of social media where somebody says something and they're just not making a point to say that, hey, I'm about to say something that might not apply to everybody. This like I did a video recently on what what should your ketone level be, or does your ketone level matter? And I think the first point I made in that video was like, well, it depends. Why are you doing keto? Your ketone level might matter, it might not. And I did one on 6 ways to raise your ketone level. And the first thing I said there was, if you're happy with how things are going, then you don't need to worry about this because you're doing whatever your ketone level is now, it's working for you. So it's I think people, they say something, but they don't make it clear to their viewers and their followers that this might not apply to you. And does that make sense? Like it just, everything's so black and white, and people take things at face value too, that they don't even stop to question, well, does this make sense for my situation? If somebody writes to me with a really broad question like, hey, I've been doing keto for 8 weeks and I haven't lost any weight, help. Like, what am I supposed to do with that? I need a lot more information to help this individual person, right? I Are you looking to lose 5 pounds or 50 or 200 pounds? Are you on any medications? Do you have any medical condition? What are you eating now? I can't tell you what to do or what to change if I don't know what you're doing now. So I think everybody wants it to be so black and white, and it's not.
And yeah, you've done this for long enough. I've done this not as long, but enough to say like it does feel like a cop out every single time when we say it depends. We don't know. It could be yes, it could be no. Like it's highly individual and unique, and it's what's maddeningly frustrating about nutrition, and always keeps it very interesting. But it's so frustrating to be like, we really don't know. We can guess and check, and I can provide suggestions, and mostly you're going to talk things out and decide what you want to do anyway. And you might go home and want to eat tacos. Like we could make a meal plan for you, and you just want to have tacos. Like it's just it's so it is very individual, and people need to remember that. So it's tricky.
I think there's some general underlying principles that, like, because it's, I do, I feel like a cop out saying it's individual, but it's true, first of all. But we are also all human beings. We're all Homo sapiens, maybe some of us more than others, but no, like we, we have a lot more in physiologically and biochemically, we have a lot more in common than we have different. There are some, I think, again, like fundamental underlying principles to start from. And then let's tinker if we have to. Like everyone can do a ketogenic diet. Not everyone needs to,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's very well explained. And I told you I was going to do this. I wanted to ask you about gluconeogenesis, and I'm going to phrase it in the way that you brought it up earlier, because that's the way it gets put to me most often and the one that people relate to the most. If I eat a lot of protein, does the protein turn into sugar in my body?
It depends. I mean, yeah, so yeah, amino acids can be converted into glucose, and I think there are some people who are more sensitive to this than others, because if it's mostly a glucagon thing, right? If you eat protein, it stimulates a hormone called glucagon. You know this, but I'm just saying it for the viewers and listeners, right? That protein induces secretion of a hormone called glucagon, which raises the blood sugar. And I do think there are some people who have what I will call an exaggerated glucagon response. Because normally, if you eat protein, even a sizable chunk of protein, your blood sugar shouldn't really budge much at all because it's a balance. Protein induces insulin secretion and glucagon secretion. So insulin lowers the blood sugar, glucagon raises it. So on balance, your blood sugar shouldn't really move much at all if you just eat protein. Some people do see a rise. And I don't know, I still, Casey, oh my God, help me here. I do think that because I see this sometimes. People come to me who are doing keto and their blood sugar is oddly high. And sometimes I will tell them, cut back a little bit on protein. Let's just see. Maybe you are having an exaggerated glucagon response. And I think that that tends to be something that can get better over time.
So, for example, Bronson Dant just came back on our show. Do you know Bronson?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. He just came back on our show and he did some very interesting research, dove into some research about kind of kind of like the quantity of protein that you take in a day and also like how many times in a day that you eat it. And he was making the argument based on the research that he saw that it really doesn't matter whether you're getting one or maybe two meals with a much higher protein concentration versus kind of what you hear of like spreading it out. It's better if you spread it out and get three, four, five, and each meal is like 30 grams of protein. So you have that a sufficient amount of leptin, or I'm not leptin, excuse me. What's the
Oh, the
what's the
leucine.
amino acid? Leucine. Thank you. Yeah. So do you know enough about that to like comment on that? Does one seem more real than another? It just seems to me like the more research we do into this kind of field, it's like eat enough protein is the thing. Like Stu Phillips would say, like just get enough protein. It's not about how much, this exact dosage, whatever. Again, making things overly complicated. What do you think about any of that?
So I think that all of those little hacks, when should I eat it? How much should I have? How often? Is tuna better than chicken? Is salmon better than cod? Like all of that might play a role when you are talking about the fringes, the margins, an Olympic athlete, a fitness competitor, someone who is trying to eke out every last bit of advantage they can get, someone who has to shred every last molecule of fat from their body, or someone who literally the difference between them winning a medal and not is 1 second of time in a race. Most of us mere mortals are not in that category, and it's not, I don't think it would make much difference for most of our everyday purposes whether we're eating a fewer protein meals but more frequently versus one or two meals throughout the day. But if protein was that big a problem, if if giant chunks of protein turned into sugar, we'd have a lot more diabetic bodybuilders. But
Right. Good point.
we just don't see epidemics of type 2 diabetes in some of these gym goers and some of these really muscled people, right?
That's
You're
such a
not
good
going to
point.
see an A1C of 9.0 in someone with six-pack abs who's a bodybuilder.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Amy, I love our conversations. We always chat about interesting stuff, and I love the way you think about things and help just make this more accessible and less insane, less crazy, like you say. Your talk was wonderful in Las Vegas. I really appreciated it, and I know a lot of other people did as well. Thank you for taking the time to come back on our show today. Where can people go to find you and connect with you and your work?
Well, thank you. Thank you again for those just very encouraging words. And I was very nervous to give that talk because I thought it was going to ruffle a lot of feathers. So I was very relieved at how well received it was. But
Wow, it didn't
um,
show that you were nervous. You did great.
oh, thank you. So my website is terribly out of date, but the best place for people to contact me or if they're interested in booking a call is stallslayer.com. Stallslayer.com. But I'm on YouTube, Amy Berger, Keto Without the Crazy, so people can follow me or leave a comment and I'll see it. And I am on X at Tuit Nutrition, TUIT Nutrition. And I work, I work for Dr. Westman's company, Adapt Your Life Academy. We do online courses all about keto. We have a course about carnivore coming up later in the summer. So if people are interested in learning we have all kinds of courses about keto, protein, cancer, all kinds of stuff. Adapt Your Life Academy.
That is amazing. We will link to all of that in the show notes to make sure all the links are up to date. Amy, again, thank you so very much for sharing your understanding with us. And thank you for making this so much easier to understand and interpret and actually execute to again, as you say, make people's lives better. Just so appreciate you. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Stanley Cup playoffs. And thank you so very much for coming on to Boundless Body Radio again with us. We really, really appreciate you.
Thank you. Good to see you again.
Great to see you again as well. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.